All right, everybody, back again. Today's episode. Do you believe that low volume, high intensity is the only way to go? Maybe keto is the only way that you can diet and get lean, or perhaps maybe X, Y, and Z supplement is the only way to boost your performance. Today, we're going to dive into a skill called Socratic questioning that is going to help us assess whether or not the things that we believe really hold up. So, if you're interested in that, let's get to it. So what is Socratic questioning? Socratic questioning I often use in therapy, and it is a skill that most clinicians are taught to utilize. Now, this skill can be very helpful because often in therapy, you don't want to give advice. You want to help someone discover whether or not their thinking patterns are accurate and valid. My thought for this is it is a very powerful tool for refining our fitness beliefs. So let's get into the pieces with this wonderful acronym, CARPAS. This acronym comes from a sports psych text, which I'm losing right now, but I'll put it up here on the screen for you to go check out. And let's just break it down one by one. What does C stand for? C stands for clarifying questions. Let's just take the example of low volume, high intensity training. So you want to clarify exactly what that means. So if by low volume, high intensity training, you mean 1 or 2 sets performed to muscular failure per week, per body part, that would be a good sort of clarification for high intensity, low volume training. Additionally, once you clarify what you mean by a particular thing or fitness belief, or in this case, a type of training, you can then begin comparing that to other ways of training. So the A in CARPAS, what assumptions do I have about this style of training? So now that you've sort of fleshed out what you meant by low volume, high intensity training, what assumptions do you have in there? What are you assuming about this training that will get you the results that you want? Are you assuming low volume will keep the fatigue down so that you don't get injured? It's a very distinct possibility. Are you assuming that training to a closer proximity to failure with a low volume will get you as much stimulus as training with moderate volumes and moderate intensities, or higher volumes and moderate intensities? This is something you can write down. Just what are you assuming about this style of training? So you have to clarify, and then you have to ask yourself, what are you assuming about this particular method? Then you move on to your reason. So your reason question. So why do you believe what you believe? What evidence is there to support this belief? What research supports this belief? Why do you think that this style of training is superior than another style to reach your bodybuilding goals specifically? By looking at the reasons you have for a particular belief, in this instance, the low volume training, you begin to shit test your own idea and see if it stands up to muster. More often than not, I feel like we almost feel our way into deciding something, and we don't test the rationale for it. So by outlining your reasons, you establish a clear foundation to see if your decision to engage in low volume training or ketogenic dieting or utilizing any number of supplements has a foundation of rationality or not. P, the next thing you want to look at is perspectives. So we clarified what we believed, took a look at our assumptions, took a look at the reasons. Now we want to get other people's perspectives, because if you are sort of living in this myopic world where you are only using your views about a particular thing to make a decision, you're probably going to make a less than optimal decision at least some of the time. So what do trainers have to say about this? Now, again, this is coming from a sort of bodybuilding lens. It's not powerlifting, it's not Olympic lifting or anything like that. So just from a purely bodybuilding perspective, what do all the trainers out there think about low volume, high intensity training? If you sort of come at it from this RP, Dr. Mike sort of lens, I think you have this auto-regulated model where your volumes are going to go up and up and up as long as you're going to be able to recover, and you're going to be training at various reps in reserve. So that style doesn't really adhere to a low volume, high intensity style. Then if you take a look at someone like Brad Schoenfeld, whose work is literally in the hypertrophy of muscle, I think he still espouses sort of that 10 to 20 sets per body part per week range to sort of optimize muscle gains. So if you have those two people who are following the literature and adhering to somewhat higher volumes than you would have in a low volume, high intensity workout program, is your perspective accurate on utilizing that type of training? For some individuals, low volume, high intensity training might fit in the routine, might feel the best on their joints, but on average, what is the best thing for muscle growth? Then you move on to I, or implications. What are the consequences of believing in this? Well, I'd say sort of just what you miss out on. If you believe in low volume, high intensity, you're going to be training closer proximities to failure. You're not going to be training with as much volume. For me, that's going to be, I'm not going to have as much fun when I train. I like a decent amount of volume, especially for, things like arms. I mean, could you imagine just training 1 or 2 sets of biceps and triceps a week? those are just fun things to train. So some of the implications there is I'm going to have less fun. Other implications, if I am adhering to very low volumes, I need to make sure that I'm training at a very close proximity to failure so that I can eke out as much gains as I can. And, so set per set, that type of high intensity training is going to be, slightly more injurious. So got to be careful there. So there are a few implications for sort of having a low volume, high intensity routine. Additionally, there are probably some positive implications too. Like if you're the type of person at higher training volumes to get sort of more of these repetition injuries, and you find yourself getting more injured at sort of higher volumes of training, there might be a positive benefit here to lower volume, high intensity. It really just sort of, it depends. You're trying to find the most accurate view here, not one that leans in one direction or the other. I realize that I've sort of been leaning on sort of the higher volume end in terms of hypertrophy or bodybuilding training. But for some people, on balance, utilizing Socratic questioning might lean them in a different direction depending on the implications for them. And the last thing you want to assess, source. So Karpus, the S in Karpus is source. Where does this belief come from? Does it come from your favorite researcher? Does it come from a magazine? Does it come from a blog? Does it come from a book? Whatever it is, you want to take a look and see where this belief comes from. We like to get data from peer-reviewed sources so that we know that the data is high quality. So really looking at your source is determining how high quality is the information that you are getting. Alrighty, folks, just remember, whether it's low volume, high intensity, ketogenic dieting, any kind of dieting, any kind of supplementation, questioning your beliefs ensures that your fitness decisions are informed. Next time you plan your workout or starting a new diet, trying to choose between supplements, use the Karpus method and see if why you're deciding to do something is the most accurate and valid way to go about it. In science, we start from a null hypothesis, so please move forward in the spirit of trying to disprove your own beliefs, not somebody else's. Because chances are you're not going to be able to convince them, but maybe with enough evidence, you're going to be able to convince yourself. Like and subscribe for more psychology tips, and I will see you in the next episode where we go over another mental skill to help move you forward in your fitness journey. See you next time.